Hello everybody, it's Thursday, it's Litsoc, and we are back after the holiday. Happy Easter everybody, and hope everybody had a great holiday. It's Shakespeare's birthday on Saturday. The Globe reopens on Saturday, the outside, apart from the winter season. And here it is, William Shakespeare, the complete works, all 36 plays. How many pages has this got? 1,263 pages, of which not all of it is the plays. 154 sonnets he wrote, as well as other poems. The guy still is a phenomenon, unreally matched by any other writer in the world, and still sells more books than the Bible, almost, across the world. It's also St George's Day on Saturday, and traditionally, of course, we don't know really when he was born, but we just assume he was born then because it was 3 days later that he was baptised. Anybody remind me where he was born? Yes? Stratford-upon-Avon, which is where? Aha.
Kent.
No.
No.
If you'd said London, I would have been more forgiving, because there is a Stratford in London.
Yeah.
But no, Stratford-upon-Avon is in Warwickshire, of which the bear is, and the staff is the county badge. And in Macbeth, he talks about being tied to the stake like a bear, and also exit pursued by a bear. Anybody tell me where that comes from? Winter's Tale, well done. And which famous film used it very recently? Exit pursued by a bear. There's a classroom, and there's a bear on a... Which bear? Bear isn't here. His bear is at home.
Yeah.
Paddington. The original movie of Paddington. Do you remember this? No?
I think they thought you were thinking of something this year when you said recently. So, because it's a few years old now.
The second one's nice. I love that. You don't like the first film?
You don't like the first film?
It was just not. I think the reason I don't like it is because I was 7 when I watched it, and I was. So
Oh no, you need to
scared.
watch it again.
Yeah, I need to watch it again. I'll make you watch it.
It's fabulous as a witty and guide to Shakespeare. It's just amazing how they've used it. So yes, exit pursued by a bear. Bear is pursuing a thief with the help of a London double-decker bus. So Shakespeare gets everywhere. So today that's what we're going to be talking about. On the table we have a number of texts by him. Could you grab a text and hold it up, please, to the camera? I have Romeo and Juliet, which is one of the 9 plots of literature, unrequited or yes, love that cannot be together. Who have you got, Evie? Hamlet, yes. The Dane, Emily?
The Winter's Tale.
Yep.
Yeah,
A sad tale's best for winter. Othello, yeah.
Monster.
Eleanor?
I've got much ado about nothing.
No, that's not the text.
Oh.
That is the shortened version.
Couldn't you find it? They're all together. You know, they white
look like
spines.
this.
There wasn't one there. I looked really hard. I promise I wasn't.
All right, okay. Well, you can find it in the complete work, so don't worry.
Lulu, what's your favourite Shakespeare play, having just been in one? Twelfth Night, okay. Anybody else care to... Which are you two doing? Are you doing Macbeth or Romeo and Juliet? Macbeth. Okay. I like teaching Macbeth, but I like Romeo and Juliet too. Okay, so favourite quote, favourite play? You have to come and talk to me about it on the chair. All right, I will start today with The Winter's Tale, please. Okay, A Sad Tale's Best for Winter. This is one of the last plays that Shakespeare, not the very last play that he wrote, but a lot of the last plays he wrote. It's about jealousy, it's about resurrection, it's about new life, being reborn, and it is from this play, Exit Pursued by a Bear, is one of the most famous stage directions. that he ever wrote. We have shepherds, we have a court, we have a person called Leontes who lives in Sicily, and sometimes is a king, and sometimes is a mafioso, and sometimes is just a really jealous man, and he accuses his best friend called, I can't remember what his name is now, honestly, Polixenes, of having an affair with his wife. And his wife is called Hermione, a lovely name, and so much so that he causes her to die. And Polixenes has to flee. He's the king of Bohemia, which is now modern-day Czech Republic. And then there's a great gap of time during which Hermione Leontes' baby, called Perdita, grows up in Bohemia to a shepherd who's adopted her, because the person who put her on the shore of Bohemia has sadly been killed by that bear, pursued by. And at the end, I won't spoil the plot, but Leontes finds Perdita again and something else as well. So, this is... We have also a very famous character called Orticulus, who is called a picker-up of unconsidered trifles. Orticulus is a bit of a rogue. He would have been played by one of the clowns or one of the comedians. And this quote I've just said, picker-up of unconsidered trifles, is also something that's applied to Shakespeare, because Shakespeare quotes and alludes to all sorts of different things throughout all his plays. He's a terrible borrower. If anybody's seen Upstart Crow, anybody seen Upstart Crow?
Didn't like it.
You didn't like it? Oh my God, you're off the Christmas card list.
Was I up on the Christmas card?
Yes, you would have been.
Yeah, you blew it.
Blown that one. And Forever. And also, this is in Shakespeare in Love. You seen Shakespeare in Love? No?
No one's seen that either.
No, I have.
Yay, there we go.
Yes.
I really enjoyed it.
Yes.
Good.
Well, he gets all his ideas from other people, doesn't he? And then he writes them up. So, for example, there's Ethel and the Pirate's Daughter, or Ethel the Pirate's Daughter, and Kit Marlowe gives him a much better title, Romeo and Juliet. Yes, good title. So Orticulus is a really, he's basically what Orticulus does is he picks up things that he thinks people have left behind. There's also wonderful names in this. Perdita, a fabulous name. Florizel, which sounds like some sort of cleaning fluid. Leontes, Paulina, Hermione. When I come back in another life, I want to be called Hermione. Orticulus, Camillo, and Dorcas, and Antigonus. The last time I saw this was at the cinema with Kenneth Branagh and Judi Dench. Judi Dench was Paulina. If you get a chance to see it ever, it is lovely. It's very sad too, because one of the main characters dies and isn't reborn. It's about redemption, and also be careful what you think. Think before you speak, basically. So that's what mine today. Vivi, do you want to come and talk about you know what?
Okay. So I've gone for Midsummer Night's Dream, which is one of the first ones I ever read and one of my all-time favourites. It's one of those ones where it's like Romeo and Juliet. There have been so many adaptations of it, whether it be modern or actually in the Elizabethan era. I think and it's got a whole load of different range of characters. You've got Oberon, who's very serious, and he does like to play tricks, but he tries to do what's best. There's Puck the...
He's not very nice to his wife, is he?
No. There's Puck the mischievous, like, little elf fairy. I don't.
Pook. I taught you that last year. Pook. He's a pook, isn't he?
Okay.
Yes.
Pook. Who?
Made a rod for you back choosing this book.
Yes. Who basically is one of the reasons why the mischief is all caused, but is also one of the reasons why book comes back together. And
Read a bit.
I'm going to think Puck's. I think I'm probably going to do Puck's end speech because that's a nice one.
Sounds good.
If we shadows have offended, think but this, and all is mended, that you have but slumbered here, while these visions did appear. And this weak and idle theme, no more yielding but a dream. Gentles, do not reprehend, if you pardon, we will mend. As I am an honest Puck, if we have unearned luck, now to escape the serpent's tongue, we shall make amends ere long. Else Puck a liar call, so good night unto you all. Give me your hand if we be friends, and Robin shall restore amends. I think the end quote, it's almost sums up the whole entire play. Am I allowed to spoil it? Because
Yes, I think everyone
Okay.
around this table will know
Good.
it. Those at home can cover their ears. And
Yes.
Well, I mean, he really sums it up how with the love spell, how there was that whole drama between Helena, Hermia, Lysander and Demetrius, and how basically everything will eventually come back together, well, in this story.
Even better.
Yeah. And obviously because it's a comedy, not a tragedy, there are some funny bits, especially with it's a picture of Bottom as the donkey.
yes.
I love. There are no pictures in this book, but I just love the outer pictures
They're brilliant.
because they're just
Yeah.
they're very beautiful. There's a little Puck here, and he just looks rather wicked. And I love Titan.
Wicked,
Sort of
eh?
prototype of
Yeah.
Peter Pan, I always think. As
Mm.
well.
Yeah, he does.
Mischievous.
He does remind me of Peter Pan, just like trying to do what's best, but ends up pulling a prank along the way. And I think there's just something about this play that I really love. The fact that everyone, it's obviously not. I mean, it's possibly one of the most famous ones he ever wrote,
Oh,
and
yeah,
it's
I
one.
think it is now,
It's
yeah.
one that everyone knows, especially cause some of them are quite dark and some of them are not exactly the nicest for younger children to read, but this is definitely one that I think everyone has and should have read, and especially I read it when I was about 7, not the actual play version but a shortened version of it, and then I read this. But yes, that's Midsummer Night's Dream.
Thank you, Evie.
Isabel? Sure, yeah.
Okay, I don't think it's out on the table, but
Oh, sorry, which one?
it's all right. I was going to talk about Twelfth Night.
Shall I go and get it?
No, it's all right. I don't think I need it. I don't want to step on your toes, Lulu, if that's what you're going to talk about. Oh, that's okay.
Excellent, there we go.
I wouldn't talk about that one because it's the first time I ever remember coming across Shakespeare properly. We did it in Year 6 when I was at school. And I think I always knew the name Shakespeare, you sort of knew of Romeo and Juliet, but that was the first time we'd really studied it. And so it kind of became a real thing, and I remember just thinking it was so funny. And I really loved it, and it was kind of, just one of those moments where you're like, oh, these kind of old stories and these old plays can be
Fabulous.
interesting and funny. Because I remember it was in the early 2000s we would have done it, so we watched the animated tales. Don't know if you know those,
Yeah, I
the
remember
kind
those.
of
Yeah, they're
little
really good.
stop-start animation ones, and I remember watching that, and it's just a really strong memory for me of watching, what's the guy that wears the yellow,
Malvolio.
Malvolio, yeah, he puts on
Yeah.
the little
Yellow
yellow,
stocking,
the
yeah.
yellow stocking. Just a really strong memory for me, but I just love that play. I think it's,
Did you see the
It's good
National
laugh.
Theatre one in lockdown? The
no, I don't think I
Tamsin
did.
Gregg. So
No, I
they changed
didn't.
they changed his sex, his gender.
Oh, okay.
So she was Malvolia.
Interesting.
Yeah.
No, I'll have to look that
Yeah.
up. But yeah, I just remember liking that one because it's kind of, it's light-hearted and it's fun. There's silly moments, but it's also got quite a good moral backing to it, isn't it? They all do. But he talks about it's kind of this idea of perception and what you think you might want turns out to be something very different, and learning about
Yeah.
sort of changing your initial perceptions of things. I think That's one thing I remember taking away from it.
Definitely. Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, that would be my choice.
Yeah.
Good
Well,
choice.
thank you very much.
Don't have any quotes, but you know.
She's smiling like Patience on a Monument. That's always the one I think about Viola. Okay. Emily, do you want to go next?
Well, this year we did Much Ado About Nothing. I know Ellen is doing that, but I won't say all of it.
What do you like about it particularly?
I really like how it's like from quite a long time ago, but it seems like if you like change the words a bit, it seems like it's from today. It's like a story like from today, and it's really funny. When we were doing it in class, we did it in class. I think we finished it, and it was really funny. And the movie was really good as well. And I remember we just wanted to we didn't want to stop and like take it apart. We just wanted to keep watching and watching it because it was just
Did
really.
you watch the Kenneth Branagh movie, the one set in Italy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we just wanted to keep watching it because it was really good. Yeah, and my favourite like characters and like plot twists and stuff were Benedict and Beatrice, because they were like really funny, like to watch their relationship and stuff.
They were married at the time as well, which makes it even funnier.
The actors.
Even funnier now.
Yes, indeed. All these years later,
Ironic, yeah.
they rather Benedict and Beatrice rather upstaged because ostensibly, hero and are the leads. What's his name? Thank you. Yeah, they're the leads ostensibly, but actually, they upstage it, don't they? They sort of steal a limelight.
Yeah.
And you're right, it is funny. It's got very good comic relief characters. You know, the police inspector.
Oh yeah, Dobry and Burgess are really hilarious.
Yeah.
That was quite funny trying to translate what they said.
Oh, it's almost impossible because it's the usual thing with Shakespeare. If you're lower class, you can't pronounce your words correctly or use your words correctly. It's really, the age-old thing. Yeah, it's exactly the same with the bottom. Yeah.
We were watching it earlier because I literally just came from English, and I remember, and I can literally just remember the thought that went through my head whilst we were watching it, and I just remember thinking, this is like watching a film in a different language. So I didn't understand a word they said.
Yeah, it's becoming much more remote now, so sadly, but still good when it's performed in front of you. Thanks, Emily. That's brilliant.
Thank you,
Thanks
Emily.
very much. Ellen, do you want to follow on with your Much Ado too?
Well,
You want to show the camera what Miss
I
Honey
really-
chastised you
I
for?
really did try and look. Emily was the only. Could
If I
only
go
find
down
this.
there and find it, Eleanor, as my mother used to say to me,
I genuinely couldn't find it. I don't know if I'm. I mean,
well,
I.
it might be that somebody from year 8's got it out because
Actually, yeah, it's
Might be.
possible. They have been
possible.
borrowing
Yeah.
actually year 8
Yeah.
Shakespeare. So
it's under my bed probably.
Yeah. So I read Much Ado About Nothing when I was younger. And I remember falling in love with it. It was that and the other film, As You Like It.
It's my favourite.
Yeah, those two are my top favourites. And Much Ado About Nothing, revisiting it this year, was like another door opening for me because I got to relive it, but understanding it better now. And I love how Shakespeare has such different relationships with his characters, like Hero and Claudio. He sees her immediately, they immediately get engaged, blah 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 blah. Whereas Benedict and Beatrice, they're so nervous about confessing feelings that they literally have to be tricked to actually get into some sort of relationship. And I just love how he portrays that almost as if like not every single relationship is the exact same, like because you often find that they are. And the only critical thing I have critic I have about it is the fact that he uses a very similar plot like sort of fixing the error in the story is very, very similar as Romeo and Juliet, with the pastor coming up with this idea to pretend to be dead.
There's a theory that Romeo and Juliet is just the tragedy
tragedy version, because
Yeah.
it's very similar, but that's I still think it's a good way. But I mean, watching the film as well, you sort of, because you can understand the words a little bit better, it really sinks into you how important certain things were in the Shakespearean times, like your virginity. So the fact that Beatrice
Still
actually
are
wants,
some cultures, aren't they?
but the fact that Beatrice literally wants Claudio dead for even thinking that his sister would do, her cousin would do
I were
this.
a man, I would eat his heart.
Yeah,
and
and the way that she says that the only way that he will allow Benedict to prove his love to her is to kill him, and it's quite extreme. And so I just find it a very nice story that I like a lot.
But with dark bits, isn't it?
Yeah.
Poor old hero. He's treated badly.
Yeah.
I'll follow Lulu because
Oh,
I've just
okay.
heard we've chosen the same one,
All
I
right.
think. So I'll wait for Lulu.
Do not say sorry.
We all have different points of view.
Yeah, you have
Absolutely.
different things we like about
It's a
it.
good choice, though, I think.
It is.
Yeah, I love Richard here too.
That's ironic because I was going to start it with when I heard I'd been performing this, I was very skeptical because I wanted to perform one of the comedies, like
okay.
Twelfth Night. But I definitely I definitely settled in to it way more.
It's got some beautiful writing in it.
It does. It's a really lovely play. It's oh my god, every point I had just left my head. But it's about the nasty old King Richard and his like bid for power, which eventually obviously ends in disaster. And I think
A horse, my kingdom for a
exactly
horse.
but yeah, I think my favourite character is probably Buckingham, and it was really interesting exploring the different ways to perform his character, like kind of earlier on, but as either having all of the power or like none of it, or like 50% of the power, like who shares the power dynamics in the play, and basically Richard kind of goes from 50 to 100 to 0 over the course of it. But yeah, were you going to say something?
There's a fabulous film that Al Pacino did called Looking for Richard, where it starts off as a sort of documentary, and it's a sort of I'm just walking along the streets of New York and thinking about Richard III and how I might like to play it. And you know Pacino, he's a great big character, and Kevin Spacey plays Buckingham, and eventually they end up performing the play on screen, and you see, in fact, they actually come here. You see the globe before it's finished. It's a fabulous sort of record of that time, and you see him die on the battlefield, which is, I'm not sure if it's actually Bosworth. It might be Bosworth Field, and it's basically their insight, their discussions as actors into the play and what other people know about the play as well. Called Looking for Richard. It's fabulous, really worth
I'll
seeing.
just have to watch that.
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
it's weird, like once you perform the play, you're kind of emotional attachment to
yeah,
it.
definitely. Yeah.
Were you going to say something about the soliloquy?
No, please do, though. My favourite character is Ad Neville in it, so I was going to talk about him.
There we go.
Yeah.
I was going to read it out if that's okay.
Yeah, do. Yeah.
So this is at the start of the play. It's really famous opening lines. Now is a winter of our discontent, made glorious summer by the sun of York, and all the clouds that lowered upon our house in the deep bosom of the ocean buried. Now are our brows bound with victorious wreaths, our bruised arms hung up for monuments, our stern alarums changed to merry meetings, our dreadful marches to delightful measures. Grim-visaged war hath smoothed his wrinkled front, and now, instead of mounting barbed steeds to fright the souls of fearful adversaries, he capers nimbly in a lady's chamber to the lascivious pleasing of a lute.
But I that am not shaped for sport of tricks, nor made to court an amorous looking glass, I that am rudely stamped and want love's majesty, to strut before a wanton ambling nymph, I that am curtailed of this fair proportion, cheated of feature by dissembling nature, deformed, unfinished, sent before my time into this breathing world scarce half made up, and that so lamely and unfashionable that dogs bark at me as I halt by them, why I, in this weak piping time of peace, have no delight to pass away the time, unless to spy my shadow in the sun, and descant on mine own deformity. And therefore, since I cannot prove a lover to entertain these fair well-spoken days, I am determined to prove a villain, and hate the idle pleasures of these days. Plots have I laid, inductions dangerous, by drunken prophecies, libels, and dreams, to set my brother Clarence and the king in deadly hate the one against the other, and if King Edward be as true and just as I am subtle, false, and treacherous, this day should Clarence closely be mewed up about a prophecy which says that of Edward's heirs the murderer shall be. Dive thoughts down to my soul, here Clarence comes. So yeah, pretty sick.
Sounds like a nice guy, huh?
Yeah, and basically he's complaining about his disability and the fact that he can't get any chicks.
Yeah, he's also, he's talking about, early on when he's saying, now's the winter of discontent and everything's going good, he's talking about the Wars of the Roses because, it seems like everything is going well for the House of York, but for him, he's actually, I need to have more power, basically.
Richard III, great play, don't be sceptical, as I was. Yeah, that's what I have to say.
Do you know the story about the car park?
I do.
Can you tell us?
No, I'm worried I don't. Basically, Richard III, we weren't sure where he was buried. We didn't have his remains, and then they were digging up a car park in Leicester.
Yeah.
And they found him just under there. Was it under a disabled parking spot? I think probably, but
yes,
that's not what I meant. But that's where they found him.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was very interesting. They did some DNA analysis on the bones.
Did you see it? Have you been to see it? Have you seen it?
Yeah.
Yeah, me too. It's really great,
fabulous.
Isn't it? It's amazing.
It's absolutely fabulous museum, and the cathedral is so lovely to visit because the tomb is just beautiful. It is really beautiful. That whole square is lovely, isn't it? Yeah.
Not a bad place to visit, Leicester. Just putting that out there.
Yeah, it's really interesting. It's a lovely place to visit. And of course, it was all because the Richard III Society and the lady who ran it, or was secretary, she had this feeling. She just knew he was there. And there's a wonderful documentary on, it might be on Channel 4, all four, where they follow the dig, and they couldn't believe they'd found him the first day. The day they broke ground.
You just were like,
what? Oh, and watching the funeral, I mean, just the procession from Bosworth into the town. It was so moving.
Poor old Richard, I don't think he was as bad as Shakespeare.
No, I think that's very much worth emphasising.
If you watch the Horrible History song about him, you'll feel for him,
Well, he was so
as
young,
I did.
wasn't he? He was so young, and he was also introduced by Henry Tudor, by Thomas More, who'd worked for Henry Tudor's Archbishop Morton.
Tudor propaganda.
Yeah.
And of course,
Propaganda,
Shakespeare
yeah.
was operating at that time too. So
Shakespeare really liked to suck up to whoever was on the throne at the time, which is basically what Macbeth is.
yeah, exactly. That's why there's witches in Macbeth.
Yeah, exactly. There's also a lovely book that you might enjoy called The Daughter of Time. Have we got a copy of that?
I think so.
Where Josephine Tay, who wrote it, her detective Alan Grant is in hospital, and he does this investigation into this strange mystery. Who killed the princess in the tower?
Nice.
It's very well argued. It's not entirely accurate. She's bent some of the things.
It's quite old now, isn't it?
Yeah, it's very old now. Yeah. But it's really, you'd love it actually. It's really good. So thank you, Lulu.
Thanks, Lulu.
It's nice to have two people that are really into Richard III.
Mm-hmm.
So mine is also Richard III, and I've bought my really battered university copy that's got all of my scribbles in there from years ago. I was so happy someone chose Richard III because it's one of my favourites. So Shakespeare's historical plays, I don't feel they get celebrated enough, and Richard III is particularly one of my favourites. And the reason I love it is his wife, Anne Neville. If you read her biography, she had quite a sad life. And she's one of the women, I think, that have been lost in history, and this play is one of the few where you actually get to hear what she might have thought and her interpretation. And in Tudor history, she was one of those people that was just always there, but you never get to hear her. So I love that about Richard III, that we get to hear what Anne might have thought, but she doesn't come across as the best character, I think. She is a little bit shallow, quite ambitious, and a little bit naive. So poor old Anne gets treated quite badly by Richard in the play, I think, as well. And one of my favourite quotes is, he has actually just Richard is trying to court Lady Anne over the body of her father-in-law, the king, and he actually
really
says,
sounds like Shelley and Mary Shelley, doesn't it?
Exactly. And my favourite quote is, "Was ever woman in this humour wooed?" And I think that is fantastic. And although it's a historical play, there are quite some funny bits in it, I think, as well. So it does stay up there with one of my favourite plays. And sort of knows her situation, that he's killed her husband as well as her father-in-law, and there is always that danger that he will actually supposedly have her murdered as well if she doesn't fulfil her purpose as well. And Anne actually says that I'll rest beside the chamber where thou liest. So there's always that feeling that she's not quite as safe, even though she is the queen. So yes, it's really, really fantastic play, quite funny in parts, and well worth a read. So I'm so happy someone else has picked it as well to talk about.
Who have you seen portraying him? Have you seen any?
Oh gosh, I've never seen it on stage. I've watched various adaptations, and I find it really interesting that Shakespeare almost set the template for Richard III, and a lot of other people have just copied his interpretation of him being quite villainous. But it leads on quite nicely from last week, our last meeting about monsters. And
Yes.
What are you going to mention now?
I won't say the JP word at all. No, we'll leave that behind. But if Shakespeare had done an adaptation of that, I think it'd be really good.
I would like to see that. I would
That
pay
would
good
have
money
been
to see that.
Brilliant.
Okay.
He would have been well ahead of his time.
Yeah, well, yes, quite. Didn't know about the dinosaurs back then.
That's it. But no, well worth a read. And there's a number of other historical plays. So you've got Henry V and Richard II. So if you love Tudor history, give them a go. And don't be intimidated by the historical ones. They are absolutely fantastic when you get into them. So give them a try as well.
It's worth pointing out that it kind of follows, Richard III kind of follows on, doesn't it, from other history plays, which were depicted in Hollow Crown, if you saw that. That was a good adaptation, with Benedict Cumberbatch as Richard III. And Rory Kinnear and all sorts of... we got the DVDs downstairs. And it starts with, I think it starts with Richard II. That cycle.
No, it starts with Henry VI.
Oh, Henry VI.
Part 1.
Henry VI. They didn't do Richard II then.
They did.
They did.
But it's Richard II comes...
Oh, they did the two separate... Yeah, I got it. Yeah, they did two separate ones, didn't they?
They put them all together.
Yes, yeah.
So... sorry. Richard II, Henry V, Henry VI, Richard III, and then...
I thought they would have ended with Richard III.
They would have ended. But Hollow Crown...
Yeah, it brings it all together. Yeah, because it can be a bit confusing, as Miss Hadley just proved. It can be a bit confusing to remember the order.
So. It's confusing in history anyway.
They're all called the same, aren't they?
Part 1 and 2 as well.
Oh, yeah, let's not forget Henry... Before Henry V, obviously, Henry IV, Part 1 and 2.
Yeah.
After Richard II.
They've all got the same name.
But Henry V is a very famous one. That's a very, very quotable one.
Yeah.
Too.
Thank
you.
My favourite Shakespeare book is probably going to be Macbeth.
Yes.
And I like it because of the sort of the way it's sort of presented. Because you've got these three witches, and then this... I can't remember if he's a king or prince.
King Duncan.
Yeah.
Yes.
He's just like won a war, and then he bumps into these, and they're just, and then.
Oh no, that's
Macbeth is he's a thane, the
He's
thane of Glamis.
He's a noble. He's a good man.
a good man, and then he meets the
Until he
witches.
meets the witches.
And then it all goes wrong.
Yeah, and then they sort of like tell him all these things, and it sort of goes wrong. I read this like a long time ago, so I'm trying to remember it.
Is there, if you want to read the blurb to us? Yeah.
Yeah, that's it, Macbeth, yeah. So just read the blurb if you want on the back.
Just read the blurb if you want to.
Promised a golden future as a ruler of Scotland by 3 sinister witches, Macbeth murders the king to ensure his ambitions come true. But he soon learns the meaning of terror. Killing once, he must kill again, and the dead return to haunt him. A story of war, witchcraft, and bloodshot. Macbeth also despites the relationship between husbands and wives and the risk they are prepared to take to achieve their desire. This book includes a general introduction to Shakespeare's life and the Elizabethan theatre, a separate introduction to Macbeth as chronological suggestions for further reading, an essay discussing performance options on both stage and screen.
You'd have to read that bit. Okay, so what do you like about Macbeth?
Yeah, what is it that makes it memorable for you?
I like the way it's presented and how it's choosing sort of life or death. It's like kill one person and then kill another, or sort of don't kill anyone. And it's like when you're promised to be a very good ruler, then you sort of think it through as being a good ruler, killing people. So, yeah. I like the sort of twist.
Yeah. Do you like Lady Macbeth as a character, or do you think she's too evil?
I like her as a character.
You like her. She's very powerful.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Starts off the more evil one, and then gradually the roles reverse a bit.
Yeah.
And Macbeth is undoubtedly,
Isolated by
spoilers,
her.
more evil by the end.
Yeah.
We went to see it recently.
We did. At the Globe.
Did you two
Very
come along?
lucky. Ellen, did you come?
Hannah did, but Eleanor
did,
not.
Yeah.
What did you make?
think,
Yeah,
Hannah?
what did you make of it?
Yeah, well, wasn't Lady Macbeth had COVID? So
Yes, and so they had a man playing Lady
Yes.
Macbeth.
yeah, he was very good.
He was, wasn't he?
He
I
was
was very
excellent.
impressed by him.
Yeah.
Yep. What did you think of the overall show, though?
Overall, it was really good. I liked how they did the witches.
Yes.
Yes, they were
Yeah.
excellent, weren't they? Yeah.
It's very clever, I thought. It's particularly the scene where he goes to them and they tell them about, the prophecies,
Yeah.
the way the voodoo style
Yeah.
influence dolls. That was brilliant.
Yeah. I
So-
thought also, for the first time ever at the Globe, I've seen them use the thunder sheets.
Yeah.
I've never seen them use it
Yeah.
like that on stage. It worked really well, didn't it? It actually showed, how it would have been.
Yeah, and the dance they did at the end was great too. That was fun.
Lovely jig. Yeah.
Yes, and of course that's what they did.
Yeah.
They would, no matter what the play was,
Yeah.
loads of corpses on the stage.
Yeah.
They all get up and do a little jig.
Absolutely. We're getting everybody off the stage and everybody leaves happy.
Yes, exactly. Which you might need after seeing something like King Lear.
Absolutely.
We had to perform on top of the Macbeth staging.
Oh, did you?
And it was so dangerous. The stage manager was like, "Don't stand on the rocks," and we were like,
Yes.
Ah, yeah, the rocks.
And I had
Yeah.
to stand on the rocks.
What were they made of?
It was like hard plastic.
Oh, right, okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Inside information: don't stand on the rocks.
Don't stand on
Good
the
to know.
rocks. Yeah,
Good to
there
know.
we go.
I'll remember that one.
I like the rap they had at the beginning, at the front though. That was good.
Well,
Yeah,
that's
getting-
not like even.
Oh, you weren't allowed to stand on that either. Oh, fair
Are you
enough.
not allowed to do merch? Huh?
Big risk assessment then.
Yeah.
No.
Thank you, there.
Hannah, Eleanor?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Do we have The Merchant of Venice?
Oh, no, I didn't get that
No,
one.
do you want me to
But
go and get it for you?
No, it's alright.
Yeah, okay.
I went to see it recently in the Globe with my friend.
Mhm.
Yeah, and they tried to do like a modern adaptation, which was good. It's the story of Shylock, who is a Jewish moneylender, and eventually his desire for revenge is quite bad for the main characters. So yeah, I thought this is really interesting because for me, some of my family I know in the past, because of how that play was used, well, like either refused to go see it or couldn't read Shakespeare in general in the most
Yeah.
extreme cases, just because of like Hitler quoted it and stuff, and it was very bad. But I think modern days it's sort of being reclaimed, and I think there are some very interesting moments and speeches, and showing how prejudice plays an important role. Although I definitely wouldn't go so far to say it's any sort of positive representation at all. But in particular, the speech, like if you prick us, do we not bleed? That's very powerful. Yeah.
Yes, amazing speech, isn't it?
Yeah, so you're right. There's a lot of complicated issues around. Yeah, he's it's like in the way that Fagin is a controversial character.
Yes.
In Oliver Twist, yes, there is a lot of controversy about how looking for his pound of flesh, and the stereotype of them being all money grubbing and all the rest of it and greedy. But yeah, that speech sort of, I wouldn't say redeems it, but it does make it humanises him.
I've
more.
seen it played with David Calder years ago. The RSC did a modern version where it's all set in the city of London, so everybody's traders and stockbrokers and just in braces and shirts and trousers and things. And they took out the Jewish element completely. So there was no reference to that at all. It was all about othering without the Jewish references, which worked quite well. And it was about power and shifts of power, and because Antonio and Shylock were rivals as stockbrokers, as merchants, and it's all about that rather than Christianity versus Jewishness.
I think prejudice in general is more, it's quite a lot in the play, like with Portia. She's prejudiced, but she's also, people like underestimate her because she's a woman. I hate Portia, but it's just interesting. It's when we studied it last year, we looked a lot at prejudice.
Yeah, because there's a lot of stereotyping of other people, isn't there? There's the Prince of Aragon, there's the Prince of Morocco, and then there's the German Duke as well. And so there's it's not quite as big as Shylock, but it's certainly prejudice, isn't it?
Yeah, so I think it's a really interesting play to look at. Even if it's harmful, you can acknowledge the complicated aspects of Shylock's character, which I think makes it really interesting. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you very much. Interesting. Eleanor, do you want to speak or not?
I can talk about Macbeth, which is what I'm doing for GCSE.
Yeah, do.
Well, yeah, let's have another more Macbeth.
Another,
we love Macbeth. Bye there.
It's on the table.
Yeah, if you need it, it's you.
There.
Oh yes, you want the comfortable edition.
Please feel free to chip in. Okay, so we've got Macbeth, and he's a Scottish thane who's completely loyal to King Duncan at the start, and then throughout the course of the play, his own desire for power kind of corrupts him and leads him into becoming a tyrant, killing the king, killing loads and loads of people in Scotland.
It's a bloodbath, basically, isn't it?
Yes, blood in his
Massacre,
hands.
to say the least.
And it was written by Shakespeare for King James I. And the kind of message of Macbeth is, there's a kind of theory at the time called the divine right of kings, which is if the right king kind of isn't... Oh no, hang on, that's the body politic. If the right king kind of isn't on the throne, the country will kind of go bad.
Kings, isn't it? That king believes that God chose them.
Yes,
it's
they're
kings
preordained
chosen
by God. Yes.
So it's kind of to show, because it was written in 1905.
1605.
Oh, sorry, 1605.
1605. Yeah.
1605.
You have to turn the 6 upside down.
Yeah, that's what.
So only 300 years out.
Yeah.
And
it's nothing.
a year before that, we'd had the Gunpowder Plot, where Guy Fawkes had failed to blow up King James, and it was kind of written as a warning to people thinking of killing the king. Bad things happen if you kill the king and the wrong king is on the
Do
throne.
you think it's a warning to James as well about being a tyrant?
Maybe, I think, but considering how kind of skewed the play is in James's favour, we've kind of got all the long line of, the
there's a lot of
mirror
open
scene.
flattery of him,
Yeah,
isn't
there's
there?
a lot of open flattery, I agree.
But subtly, you think
I
Shakespeare
don't
might
think
have
it's that subtle myself, but...
Yeah, it's not one of his most subtle plays, actually.
The thing about Macbeth is we don't know how he gets there, but he is crowned an anointed king. So I think under the surface there might be a little bit of what happens if you don't like your ruler? Are you justified in a rebellion? Yes, if you're putting the rightful person back on the throne, Malcolm. no, if you're just going to blow up everybody, and it's pure anarchy ensues. So.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Anyway, yeah, that's a deeper question
Do you think
for
it's a
another time.
morality play?
Yeah, I'd say so. Yeah. Yes.
If you think about what do you think about the progress of Macbeth through it, or Lady Macbeth?
Yeah.
You know, her sort of journey, if you
Thou
like.
shalt not kill. Yeah.
Yeah, we have got Lady Macbeth, who is arguably one of the most powerful female characters in literature. Throughout the course of literature, throughout the course of the play, she kind of convinces her husband to kill the king and commit all these horrible actions, which at the time was basically unheard of in her relationship. She's definitely the superior one, at least for kind of acts. Exactly, Hannah, girl boss. At least for acts kind of 1 through 3, and then after 3, her kind of
guilt catches up with
yeah,
it. The dynamics here, because Macbeth's the one who's guilty at first, and then he gradually comes into it.
I think also it's because she becomes utterly isolated. She can't talk to anybody else. The person she talks to most, apparently, is Macbeth. He won't talk to her anymore. That's clear from the moment that he decides that Banquo's going to die. Her raison d'etre basically was for supporting him. He doesn't need her anymore. He's got the witches and the apparitions, and therefore, that's it. What does a wife do if her husband, her dear partner of greatness, won't talk to her anymore? Goes mad. Yes, the guilt comes out. I think there's also that isolation.
Yeah.
You need to talk to people, don't you? That's what she's
certainly driven mad. Yes. However, whatever the cause is, she's driven mad. So
you think do you think it's about both of them, or do you think it's really is about Macbeth, the whole play?
I'd say it's about both, because she's a very big influence on Macbeth.
Yeah.
And it kind of explores both of their characters.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Right.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alma. Thank you.
That's brilliant, everybody. Thank you. Well, an excellent slam as usual. Okay, so on Monday we've got the Shakespeare Slam in the quad, starting at around 5 to 1. So do come if you can, and please take part if I give you something to do. That would be fabulous. Yes. So basically, coming up will be the Admiral's Men. Mr. Sebastian will be doing a speech from Henry V. Lulu will be doing something from Twelfth Night. We've got the fight scene.
The balcony scene first.
The balcony scene from Romeo and Juliet. We've got the witches around their cauldron. And we've then got the fight scene from Romeo and Juliet where Paul Mercutio, plot spoiler, is killed. And so is Tybalt. And then I'm going to read from Hamnet, which is... No, Hamlet.
It's the closer one, that's the one.
Which is Maggie O'Farrell's fabulous book about Shakespeare, his wife, and their children. And we'll have songs and music and generally an all-round good time.
Yes.
Huzzah.
Huzzah!
Huzzah! Yes, absolutely. If you want to celebrate Shakespeare more, Shakespeare in Love is on iPlayer at this moment. There's also The Art That Made Us, which has a whole section about Shakespeare, that era, and the Globe as well. There are all sorts of productions all over YouTube. And generally, as ever, Shakespeare always has the last word, doesn't he? To be or not to be, that is the question of life. Okay. I look forward to seeing everybody on Monday. And thank you very much for coming, as ever.
Okay, thank you, Leslie.
Okay, bye
Bye,
everybody.
everyone.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you. If you could